Hello and happy Thursday, everyone. Today we have our final dev diary before the launch of Voice of the People. So, of course, for this, we are having an entire changelog with various features or various categories. I think we're going to, run down through it just straight through, talk about some of the more important ones. We have, Voice of the People features, regular features just in 1.3. If you don't get the DLC or flavor pack, improvements, AI, balance. I was very excited about some of the AI stuff, art, interface, and etc. Mostly etc. Ooh, also content, performance, modding, etc. Bug fixes. We'll probably not go through all the bug fixes, although some of them are pretty big. So let's jump into it and get started. So. Wow, a lot of scrolling. This is probably going to be a longer video. So first of all, there are new achievements for Voice of the People. A lot of these are very funny, and there's also new achievements for Update 1.3. There's 7 for Voice of the People, 8 for 1.3. On its own, I think is the number they mentioned. And you can read through these kind of yourself, but of course they're just memes. Samantha Napoleon dynasty become a republic, etc. And then Emperor Norton as the USA become a monarchy with Joshua Norton as the monarch. You get the idea. There's going to be, military junta, have the armed forces coup the government. So I'm guessing coups will be locked into Voice of the People rather than being a part of 1.3, this type of thing. And then they, of course, do have some just for, regular old Victoria 3, like I forget I don't know how to pronounce this because I don't know how to pronounce the French, but like as France prevent Germany from unifying until 1930, this type of stuff. So there will be a ton of content even if you are not purchasing the flavor pack, and also hopefully some fixes in this sort of stuff, such that maybe if you're on the fence about it, you can just play the 1.3, see how you like it, and then maybe decide to get the flavor pack or not. Okay. Voice of the People features. Let's take a look in here. A little bit. 60 historical agitators. I think this will kind of be a big chunk of like where the flavor's at, being able to unlock all these historical people and meme it up with the historical people, and I think this will be a good bit of fun. Of course, we've already seen some of them, like Lenin, or of course some of the ones that they mention in the achievements, the new achievements, like Joshua Norton's probably going to be locked behind there. I think Max Stirner was also here, so Unite Germany and this sort of thing. So it'll be in there. Many new journal entries related to France, including dynastic squabbles, the colonization of Algeria, the Dreyfus Affair, the Paris Commune, and more. Mostly more. French buildings, of course. Je suis un chat. The new UI theme, inspired by Art Nouveau, new paper map, new outfits. We love to see them. City Hub, VFX, blah, blah, blah. Dozen new event images, which is kind of interesting, but also not very descriptive. I have no idea to what this applies. Character interaction for making an agitator an intergroup leader. So this will actually give quite a bit of... I was excited to see this. I don't remember reading this in the dev diaries, but there's been like 5 now. But being able to move an agitator to an intergroup leader is going to make it so that you can kind of pick and choose what your leaders look like a little bit, which means now there will be more strategy and involvement, chasing some of the better ruler traits like innovative and careful, and getting rid of some of the really bad ones like bandit. And bandit. Mostly bandit. You can force monarch to abdicate under certain conditions. Interesting. And there's a coup journal entry, which is different than a revolution. That's where it is done by the IGs rather than the people themselves. And events about Giuseppe Garibaldi. Okay. So features for 1.3, and this is, I am assuming, for everyone who is, even if you don't get the, the DLC, or not DLC, it's a flavor pack. Some people object to calling it a DLC. I am one of them, because it's clearly a flavor pack, not introducing enormous amount of mechanics. But okay. Agitator character's new role, to empower, create political movements. This will help a lot. We've discussed this before, but specifically going for Council Republic or multiculturalism right now are a little bit difficult. Now you can invite characters to your country that will help you pass those laws, so that'll be neat. Ability to invite agitators exiled by other countries. Also, in general, I think making the game more accessible or exciting to more mainstream audience by making it a little more character focused is something that the developers should be doing, and I think this kind of leans into that, so I'm happy about that. Alright, new character interaction system adds ability to indirectly interact directly. I thought it said indirectly directly with characters in your country, and this is script extensible for modders. And so this will be very exciting down the road because you know, you can right click on the character and be like, make a general, do this or that, exile, these sorts of things. And this gives so much potential for making, you know, systems that are much more character driven in modding. And I'm very excited about this. Okay, character interactions: exile a character, repatriate exile, royal marriage. Reworked law enactment mechanic now goes through 3 times, 3 phases before it gets passed. It can also completely fail, and this will make the game more consistent. So no more like having 95% and whiffing and be like, oh, my brain, or having 5% binking and be like, oh, I'm so good at this game. You know, no more of that. Reworked revolution progression mechanic, a bunch of different revolution stuff. Too much to go over, but the revolution should be better now. The politics overview panel, the UI, is supposed to look a lot better, and we've seen it, and it does look better. New political movements panel gives you a breakdown of supporting interest group, agitators, and pops. Again, this was going to be making the game more transparent. Anytime you do that, it's good, and this seems to have gone a long way in this regard. New revolution map markers and visuals, man, I don't care that much about that, but it will be more visual on the map, which I suppose to some extent is quite nice, because sometimes revolutions would pop, and you would be like, I had no idea revolution was even brewing, because you would just have like this little thing off to the side, which is like, oh, the rev's brewing, and if you didn't look over there, you know, it's not like a sound that would pop, or like something like this when the revolution's brewing, and so this makes it a little bit more transparent. New law group. I wish they had detailed specifically more about this land reform, or gave us some of the numbers, but now you will be able to shift the ownership of all your farms, which might make Agrarian good. This is why I was hoping to get the numbers, because I wanted to kind of chew on the numbers and think, do they make sense? Are they more capitalist owned enough, or are they like owned by the right interest groups, or these sorts of things, such that you know, you like them and can't chew on the numbers if they don't give us the numbers. But very excited about the land reform, because now you'll be able to have stuff be capitalist owned, rural folk owned, or of course landowner owned. They also have state atheism as a church and state law, which I think is just terrible. They also have new distribution power, single-party state, and technocracy. I think technocracy might be meta. A bit excited to see that. It's one where you can get a bunch of authority, and I think you can also get the industrialist, the intelligentsia, and the trade unions. On its face, it looks like you can get those 3 interest groups powerful, which is another reason to change distribution of power, so you can eventually get the what is it, the trade unionists up to being powerful, so you can get their bonus, because their bonus is particularly large. And technocracy specifically looks like it might fit the bill, while also giving you authority, so you get to kind of have everything. And so that one is that one's going to be a bit interesting to see if that becomes meta. We will see. Perhaps So the downside of it is you will probably look less legitimate than some of the, you know, census suffrage, universal suffrage type stuff. But you just take Beijing and you don't worry about it. So, yeah. All right. So industry banned is also a law, but this looks like a meme law. It just prevents industry. And the petition journal entry lets interest groups in government encourage the passing of their desired laws. This is super interesting. I think that the fact that you kind of set your laws in place and then you forget about it, or you don't care, I think that this is a bad play pattern. But what this does is whenever a new government forms, they're going to put petitions, and this will encourage you to pass laws. And if you pass the laws, they will be happy, and if you don't pass the laws, they'll be mad. And this adds a little bit of bite or flavor or this sort of stuff towards later in the game, once you've already gotten your laws in place. In regards to like the political situation, maybe you pass laws you don't like because you don't want to incur the malice, and then you just plan on passing it back, or this type of stuff. Country border rework for France, Algeria, and parts of Africa and Germany makes sense. And then the achievements. Okay, so that's all the features. If you just don't buy Voice of the People and you just, you know, get the 1.3 update. Now let's talk about improvements, which of course this is going to be, again, quite a bit to get through. supported law canceled modifier that radicalizes placated movement. This is so to prevent gaming the system where you could just try and pass a law and then right before the tick hits, you just pull it out. Political movements can no longer become revolutionary without the support of an interest group. This is a bit interesting, but okay. Add an effect to... I mean, I think it's probably... This is one of the weird ones in the game where you couldn't, make the interest group happy to prevent the rev or this sort of stuff, or you could rev even with happy interest groups, which kind of always felt strange, but I'm not necessarily sure it's bad, but they decided they thought it was a bad play pattern. Have a sip of coffee, everyone. Except if it's at night. Add an effect to create more radicals from standard living changes when your country has negative authority. This is nice. They did not mention this at all in previous dev diaries. Currently, floating negative authority doesn't really come at too much of a penalty. You just get negative IG approval. But creating more radicals when you have negative authority, I like that as an add. Adds a little bit more balance. Added opium growing potential to states like the Ottoman Empire, Mexico, New Granada, and Van Diemen's Land. This is exciting. This also, in particular, makes New Granada... New Granada was already really good. Expansion spot, you could pop at them early. They didn't have a lot of pop. They would have solid potentials for a variety of resources, and eventually you can build the Panama Canal there, that type of thing. Now that they can build opium eventually, even better. So that is a bit exciting. And then, of course, Ottomans and Van Diemen's Land. And then characters are more likely to become opium addicts if their culture's obsessed. Makes sense. Freed Afro-American, Caribbean, Brazilian nations now get an event that ensures slavery is almost always abolished in their nation. You always love to see when you would have slaving free Africa in the U.S. Added coal and gold potential to Morocco and the Sahara to account for their historic coal and silver fields. This is interesting. I am curious to see the numbers, because gold in particular is a resource that is always going to be extremely valuable. I mean, it's why you go for Borneo and why you go for, South Africa in regards to Transvaal and Orangey. And so this is a big deal in terms of this could shake up the metagame for, expansion. Whereas, currently it's just, I just do the same thing every game, and my viewers hate it. Hi, viewers. And so, this might make Morocco in particular a much nicer grab. On top of North Africa, Tripoli and this sort of stuff already have a good resources too. Adding whaling station potential to a few states based on historical catch data makes sense. Buildings with low cash reserves, at least 10% of employment and low profits, will now avoid hiring more employees, as this would often result in these employees ending up being fired a few weeks later. That's interesting, but that will probably make late game getting people employed a bit harder. So you might struggle more with unemployment late game, would be my guess. Female leaders of an interest group will now show up after women's suffrage is passed, unless they are generated by special content such as the struggle for said suffrage, to better reflect historical disenfranchisement of women in politics. Will now only show up after women's suffrage is passed. Okay. That makes sense. Base enfranchisement, time of various laws adjusted to match the new three-phase system. I assume it's going to happen 3 times as fast, and it'll be commensurate. Maybe it'll be a little bit faster, a little bit slower. But the idea is you have to succeed 3 phases instead of just getting 1 phase, which of course led to annoying situations where you could sit forever trying to pass on 80% and keep missing, or you would just bink 20% and think you're so good at the game. I would often do the latter and complain about the former. Populated database with historical Scandinavian IG leaders, admirals, and generals. Okay, well, it's a Swedish company, so that makes sense. Haitian and Dominican population numbers and cultures have been updated to better reflect the situation. Cool. Updated population. Okay. Montenegro has shrunk. Okay. Russian generals now have defined ideologies and interest groups. I'm guessing this means that Russia now has unique interest group type stuff. I don't know exactly what this even means. Updated the names and locations of hubs in Japan, Sakhalin, and Taiwan to be more historically accurate. Cool. Revised the starting setup around the lower Niger River in Mozambique. This is, I believe they took Damagram out of the game. I forget exactly what it looks like, but if you wanted to do a run where you play this damagram and you get all the dams in the world, now's the time to do it before 1.3. Auto-expanding buildings will no longer evaluate the length of the construction queue, but only check that cash reserves and market access are above 95%. What does this mean in terms of play? Auto-expanding buildings will no longer evaluate the length of the construction queue, but only check that cash reserves and market access are above 95%. Oh, this is spectacular. So this means that they will try and auto-expand even if the queue is not completely full, which should lead to relatively smoother situation in regards to the auto queue adding stuff. Okay, now we're going to talk briefly about AI. Pretty excited about these changes in particular because currently, I mean, the AI still sucks. In 1.2, I'm not sure what can be done about it, but as the AI gets better, the game should become more interesting. Fixed a bug that was preventing some AIs with budget surpluses from constructing high-priority government buildings, such as construction centers. Yeah, the most important building is the construction center, and the AI do not build enough of it. They also won't deficit spend, so I'm guessing they'll still kind of suck. I assume this doesn't imply that they'll be like, yeah, we're going to blast a huge deficit just to up construction. But okay. AI and autonomous investment will now be much more averse to overbuilding in states that don't have infrastructure to support it. Fantastic. AI and autonomous investment will no longer continue to build railways in states that have full market access, but no workforce. Also fantastic. You would get weird situations where you'd sometimes get like, there's been, I think in the Dutch East Indies run, we conquered a state that was managed by the AI, and it had like 40 railroads or something unbelievable, and we couldn't downsize any of the railroads because we were on laissez-faire, and we were thinking of switching off of laissez-faire just so we could downsize the enormous railroad in the middle of nowhere that had nothing going on. AI is now better at prioritizing universities and innovation generation, particularly at using more advanced university PMs. This will likely make the game or make it easier to get the achievement for getting all the tech. I know some people had asked about that. AI has greater tendency to make return state war goals into primary war goals, particularly in cases when they're trying to complete a journal entry. USA, Mexico. So that's kind of probably what's going on. Fixed an issue where the AI would repeatedly declare and then break rivalries. Yeah. Diplo still sounds like it sucks, but okay. AI is now less inclined to seize treaty ports without having a strong reason to want them. This seems good, especially when you are on the receiving end of these sort of I want a treaty port type wars. AI is now more keen to rival back countries back if they don't have a conciliatory attitude. This seems good. Peace evaluation, AI no longer considers an enforced war goals as missed opportunities. AI no longer considers already enforced war goals as missed opportunities. Okay, I didn't realize they were doing that, but so that's AI. For balance, a lot of stuff on balance. We'll quickly go through it. We'll probably go through mainly the top ones. I think towards the bottom they start getting a little bit less significant. Greatly expanded the weights for when pops will join political movements independently of their interest groups. This is so this might be why they made it so that you still need at least one IG supporting it in order to force a rev. If pops are joining political movements independent of their interest groups much more aggressively, so there's a bifurcation, I suppose, of the will of the people and the will of the IGs, which will be interesting. Monarchs and heirs now have a variety of factors affecting which interest group they're aligned with. Okay. Non-commander characters are now less likely to become wounded. Reduce the chance of bankrolling. This is a really big one. I read this and I was like, wowza. Reduce the chance of bankrolling, giving you an obligation each week from 1% to 0.2%. So this will make it much harder to expand your market diplomatically because you usually do it by getting two obligations. One obligation is used to pull them into the market, and then one obligation is used to protect them, and then this sort of thing, and for the low infamy expansion, so it'll take a lot longer, and you'll probably absolve obligations a lot less, given that this is, they are much more rare, and this sort of thing, but just keep this in mind if you're doing the low infamy play. Increase the numbers of radicals generated when conquering states that are not both homelands and claims of the conqueror. This seems fine to me. Ideology now favors presidential republic. I assume this is a unique interest group. Corn laws, and this one is also another really big one. Corn laws now require significantly expensive grain prices, so you can't just prioritize export and not actually export anything. You now have to jack up the price of your grain, and grants a market liberal landowner agitator rather than an IG leader. I'm not sure how hard it is to get the agitator to be the IG leader. If it's not very hard at all, then this is just kind of like a performative step. But that you have to get your grain prices high is now pretty... It makes it a lot rougher when you are going through the corn laws. Happy to see corn laws nerf. I think it's crazy that you can roll a market liberal landowner. I think this is just kind of silly, and the event chain currently is just super overtuned. So very happy to see a nerf. Landowner industrious characters are more likely to have expensive taste. Perfect. Officers now grant political strength from the autocracy law. That actually seems to make a lot of sense. Raised maximum personality traits for characters to 2. Hell yeah, brother. And reduced maximum skill traits for characters to 2. Aw. Bummer. Council Republic now gets legitimacy from some share of votes. Did it not before? Okay. Presidential Republic now gains legitimacy for having head of state and government, but slightly less legitimacy from a share of votes. Okay. Pops working in subsistence buildings now have the impact of... Currently, I think presidential is not anywhere near as good as the other one, so I think this might be a buff. We'll see. Pops working in subsistence buildings now have the the impact of expected standard of living from literacy greatly decreased. Okay. Reduce text cost in errors 4 and 5 to make it not quite so difficult to reach endgame tech. That's interesting. I wonder how it'll affect kind of play patterns. British East India now starts with railways technology. Nice. Interest groups will now have a slightly higher tendency to support political movements if an agitator that an interest group is supporting the political movement. If an agitator of that interest group is supporting the political movement. Okay, that makes sense. I don't know why it says slightly higher, because the agitators are new. But okay. Support for multiculturalism is now found in the humanitarian ideology. Interesting. Does this mean it's not found in the radical ideology? Because currently you force a radical to get multiculturalism, so maybe now you need to find a humanitarian. Okay, this is interesting. We'll see how that plays out. Various personality traits are now incompatible with each other. You're telling me. Added logging camp potential to Connecticut, thank God. I actually haven't noticed this, but there's logging camp potential almost everywhere in the game. But I really think that they're just so... the Northeast United States, it does not make sense to have that many different states, and they should just merge them. But of course, everyone from the U.S. would probably hate that idea. But especially Washington, D.C. should be merged with Maryland. But whatever. Significantly reduce the speed at which characters gain skill traits over time, particularly if they're exiles or commanders in the recruitment pool. Okay. I mean, so a lot of times you would just wait, and then you'd eventually need a commander, and you'd go to recruit a guy, and they're just huge, caked-up dudes. And so now I guess that's going to be less common. And so maybe you want to recruit a little bit more aggressively, or a little bit more consistently, like every 2 years or so you recruit a commander, like this type of stuff. However that shakes out. In order to kind of ensure that your generals are good. Several more building types are now subject to dangerous working conditions. Hopefully the dye factories, because people die there. Adjusted pop attraction for the devout interest group. Muslim characters are now less likely to become alcoholics. You don't say. How do they even become alcoholics? Okay, well, I guess I like that. Radical ideology no longer has a stance on citizenship laws. Okay, so this, combined with this, means that multiculturalism will now be behind humanitarian rather than radical. Okay, so this is good to know before going into the play. Sepoy mutiny is now a normal diplomatic play rather than an instant war. I didn't know about this event chain, so that is whatever it means. Industrial barriers now targets only notable minorities. So it's not going to target like the point fraction of a percent minority, I guess. Reduced throughput modifiers are industrial safety slowdowns from 50% to 10%. Thank God. Getting this event was just absolutely crippling. Like 50% throughput kill, like on all your manufacturers, is insane, dude. So happy to see this. Change requirements of the gamble to require multiple interest groups in government. That makes sense. Okay. Coming into the art, they added a bunch of arty stuff. Alternate occupation stripes instead of flags. I'm still waiting for the polka dot option so that you don't have to play as Japan if you want to polka dot everyone you're occupying, but okay. Visual planes flying for aerial reconnaissance. Not something I really felt the game needed, but I guess it's kind of nice. Military visual effects overhaul. Okay, children now wear unique age-appropriate clothing. This is a nerf. This is terrible. I was really a fan of the children with monocle and a top hat type stuff. This is awful. So I guess we should tell everyone to avoid this patch because they've ruined everything. Okay, so heirs and monarchies are no longer bald and clean-shaven throughout their entire lives. But why monarchies? Oh, heirs. Okay, whatever. Revisited clothing, waiting so children do not wear clothes that clip through their bodies. Terrible. Tweaked pollution in VFX. Well, it'd be nice to see if pollution accumulates. Currently, there's like pollution events in the game that do literally nothing. I think they should just take them out while they're doing nothing, because it's just like, as a new player, not understanding how the game works, the pollution events, like, you just like, it's adding pollution, and so now you're concerned about this thing, but this thing doesn't do anything. So they should just take those events out on a temporary basis, like the driving and like if you've seen them, you know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. It's an events that do nothing. Okay. Luis, this guy is now prohibited from wearing hats. Fantastic. Garibaldi's red shirt, dynamic soldier, and officer pop clothing. Okay. Add a late game uniform variant for the United States. Of course, got to kowtow to the US. Alright, so that's it for our interface. There's quite a lot here. And, of course, interface is going to be something that's very, very important for newer players, attracting them, like you do pops, to interest groups. So this will kind of help out I think that all this will be good. And some of it actually looks quite nice. They updated the law tab. They updated the law enactment type thing. They gave... attached the associated revolutionary events to the revolutionary political movement in an outliner for much better visibility and feedback. Improve the layout of the interest group panel. You'll see all of this stuff when you get in the game. It really does look a lot better. You could also see it on previous dev diaries. More information, more informative tooltips for political movements and revolution. They made it easier for you to parse through kind of what's going on and what's causing stuff. Combined radicals and loyalist graphs to make sure to always show this graph instead of the old one. Okay. Hopefully they have a colorblind mode on like one of the nested tooltips, which shows both radicals and loyalists together as green and red lines, which if you're colorblind, you know. Those are generally the colorblind mix-ups of red and green. Reworked the law enactment pop-up to actually be readable now. Added the outcome of law enactment checkpoint to the law enactment event that spawned because of its better feedback of what happened. Okay. Let's just keep going kind of through. Added a state construction summary map marker for when there's more than one building being actively expanded in the state to reduce the amount of construction map markers covering the map. Thank God. This should affect performance positively, especially when you're running over 10k construction. I was thinking of installing mods to get rid of all of these. A state construction summary map marker for when there's more than one building. God, that is so good. That is super, super, super nice. That should really positively affect performance, especially in the late game. Sort out when you're running 10k construction. Sort out the entire modifier database to make tooltips more readable throughout the entire game. We love to see it. More information on political movements and interest groups. Added state's urbanization value to the state tooltip and urban center building tooltip. This seems fine. You could always infer what the urbanization was roughly at based on the level of the urban center, but this is fine. Several changes and tweaks to alerts in current situation to make them less spammy and more informative, including deactivating a few and moving some information. Perfect. Added a... it would be nice if you could choose which ones will make it to the current situation thing, but okay. Added functionality to unhide all important actions you previously hidden. Cool. More on hiding. Pop support tooltip for this is again politics and revolutions and this type of stuff. Improve the reform government suggested options to make it clear which one is being selected. This seems nice. Potential timeout of journal entries can now be seen in the bottom of the corresponding journal entry panel, if any. This is nice. There's a lot of these. I suppose you could read through it if you really care about the UI becoming more accessible. I think we'll stop here. I don't remember there being any that were just absolutely insane, in terms of this is a huge difference in terms of like what things are going to happen and this sort of stuff. And so I think we'll just kind of skim over the rest of it. Gold reserves widget, the butters panel no longer empty when you have no gold reserves instead of showing an empty bar. Okay. But, this is, there's just a bunch of UI changes. They won't really affect the game, at least this one. The GDP chart now shows yearly GDP instead of weekly GDP, making what's shown in the top bar. Matching what's shown in the top bar. Okay, interesting. But let's talk about content and move on. And then performance and modding and this type of stuff. Got a lot to go through. Okay, new dynastic ideologies for France: Orleanist, Legitimist, and Bonapartist. New ideologies: positivist, Luddite, and Socialist. Added humanitarian, protectionist, Jacksonian Democrat, and authoritarian leader ideologies. Socialist ideology is now added to the trade unions after reaching socialism. Oh, so it's automatically added, which will make going Council Republic real easy. That's big. But the humanitarian so by the sounds of it, positivist, Luddite, and socialist are tied to specific groups, and humanitarian and these ones are leader ideologies that can get rolled, and humanitarian, of course, will let you go multiculturalism, so this will be a very important one. Journal entries are now inherited by a victorious revolution, meaning that GEs such as China's fragile unity will not abruptly end if Xing's government becomes overthrown in a revolution. So that's good. Major revisions to journal entries surrounding German unification. The process of annexing German miners through customs unions has been removed, and instead, these journal entries more closely follow a historical narrative. Okay, this is cool. Starting with the Schleswig-Holstein question and allowing for the annexation of North-South German miners on only on the completion of a German leadership war. Interesting. Okay. That seems good. Implemented a journal entry for various for a variety of events for nihilist movements. That's kind of new, I guess. Belle Epoque will now apply to a lot of different countries. And they said they expanded it a big amount. This seems like it might be kind of underselling what they've done, but we'll see once we get in game, won't we? Nihilists now support state atheism. You'll love to see it. Added the Ruhr state region. Added Rhineland as a releasable nation. This is interesting. Maybe it'll be fun to play as the Rhine. But an extra state in France. I don't have a strong knowledge of French geography, so I can't comment too much on them. Made Grand Exhibition more playable, removed inconsistencies, provided bonuses to text research during the journal entry. I never do this because it, like, punishes you for high infamy, and it, like, never seems... I should perhaps do this journal entry more, though. Added events that retire agitators that no longer serve a purpose. Added events that about passing land ownership law. Perfect. Added events about industry ban. Makes sense. Add some agitators at the start of the government, at the start of the game. Added several events that allow for the interactions with exiles. Added events that fire when you have an ongoing revolution. Cool. Added Franco-Provençal culture. Yeah, they reworked all of Switzerland. Added additional character traits. Reduced the frequency of arming the natives Patagonia event, but makes the events more impactful. Okay. Added Savoy as a releasable for Franco-Provincial lands. That's interesting. Big happy to see more releasables and formables in a general sense, although I think that releasing nations as a way to kneecap them, I'm not sure how I feel about it in its entirety. Like, obviously you can, yeah, we'll see how that shakes out. Abe Lincoln only appears and is an interest group leader when he's old enough to be president. Terrible. This and the clothing rework, just terrible. Specified Switzerland's religion is Protestant, but gave it more explicitly Catholic leaders as well. Okay. Changed Swiss culture to Almanac, and changed all references to Swiss culture. This is combined with Franco-Provençal in the region, and so they've just gotten rid of Swiss culture. I imagine they'll be neutral about it. Converted the French history character file to solely use character templates. Okay. Added flag for the USA if it were formed by California. All right. Added new flags for Communist California, and if California controls Baja California. Well, I guess we got to do a California run at some point then, given all this. But all this California localization. Performance probably won't tag this in the notes or whatever, but improved performance of tutorial highlights, map particle optimization. There you go. But another big one that should affect performance quite a lot when you have like 10k construction is that it's not going to show multiple buildings being constructed in the same state, which should help out on that front. So modding, and we have bug fixes after this. All logging counts commands now renamed to start logging, and log output in a standardized way. I actually am probably not the person to discuss this with, necessarily, because I don't understand what a lot of this stuff means, because I don't do modding. Added political movement link from character pool to support what they're supporting. Yeah. So this will hopefully give new flexibility. Specifically, the character interactions I think are going to be pretty big in modding, but I guess I cannot comment on this too extensively, nor can I really direct you to someone who maybe can. I mean, perhaps I know one proud Bavarian has a mod that he supports or is involved with, and so maybe he would be much better for looking at this stuff specifically, but I can't. It's not within my purview. I don't know what a lot of this means. All right, bug fixes. It's no longer possible to recruit commanders to Temp HQ. Fixed instances were There's a few of these that are really big, and then there's like most of them are just kind of insipid and like not very big. I forget the really big one. Reduce whaling stations mortality. No. Where will we get our, I can't remember the name of the book. Moby Dick. There we go. Insubordinate jingoist now adds tension instead of creating a native uprising. Interesting. Fixed game crash. Yeah, that's good. German states will no longer be forced into Hanover's market or forced out of it. Honorable restoration. Journal entry now requires that Japan stay a monarchy, so that's kind of big. But yeah, I mean, you can go through this yourself, I suppose. There's really not... I know there's like a couple in here that are like pretty big, but most of it is not very big. I forget which ones were particularly big. Assassination events... Yeah, we're not gonna... Sepoy Mutiny, they've referenced a couple times. I don't even... Okay, I guess it's for the East India Company, but was not really familiar with that. Turkestan now counts as a state in the state of Ili in the possible list to form Turkestan. So there's a few things here and there. You could probably Control F this type of thing. but not going to go through every single one of these bug fixes. And that's it. It should be pretty obvious at this point that most of 1.3 focuses on increasing both the complexity of the agency of your internal politics. Yep. Expect to be surprised by some situations, I hope so, that can arise from the interplay of the new agitator, revolution, enactment, and petition mechanics, along other improvements and tweaks we've made, blah, 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 political I don't know how to pronounce that word. Arise in your nation next Monday. Very excited, and hear how you are dealing with them. More than likely next week will be a dev diary from us. Ooh, that'll be exciting. Focusing on efforts to listening to feedback and planning for the next update. As always, you can find us on the forum, blah, blah, blah. But I think after 1.2, they were like mission silent for like a couple weeks, and so that'll be exciting. But yeah, the big ones are, of course, up at the top. Where is it? They took away the children's clothing, or they take away the children wearing adult clothing. Terrible. No, there's a lot of improvements. Hopefully it'll be, pretty excited about this stuff. The improvement section is probably the most important. Yeah, just very excited for patch 1.3. Hopefully you found this interesting and or informative. I know a lot of it was just kind of reading through the list. Feel free to do the YouTube algo stuff. And other than that, have a good day.